Hello class, welcome to Management 300, Principles of Management Lesson 5. This week, your learning objectives. After completing this lesson, you should know how to identify the vertical and horizontal dimensions of organizational structure, apply the three basic approaches, functional, divisional, and matrix, to departmentalization, develop coordination across departments and hierarchical levels, use organizational structure and the three basic organizational designs, mechanistic, organic, and boundaryless, to achieve strategic goals, develop an awareness of strategic events that are likely to trigger a change in the structure and design of an organization, explain the role of human resource management in achieving a sustainable competitive advantage, identify the key factors in the environment affecting the management of human resources, describe the human resource planning process, explain the key components of staffing and their importance, describe how training and career development provide employees with tools to succeed once they are hired, identify the purposes of performance appraisal and how it might be conducted, and describe the key objectives of the compensation system and its components. This week, your readings include chapters 9 and 10. Chapter 9, Managing the Structure and Design of Organizations. Chapter 10, Human Resource Management. Be sure to review your course syllabus and assignments for additional readings or videos. Again, this week you have two activities. You will have the discussions and the quiz. Remember that you need to post to the first two discussions. Those are required. And discussions 3 and 4 are required for those who did not attend the Lesson 5 class meeting or are fully online students. So this week, looking at Chapter 9, Managing and Design of Organizations, we're going to start with organizing, which is the deployment of resources to achieve strategic goals, an organization's division of labor to form departments and jobs, create formal lines of authority, and mechanisms for coordinating diverse jobs and roles within organization. Organizational structure has vertical dimensions and horizontal dimensions. Vertical dimensions are who has the authority to make decisions and who is expected to make the decisions and supervise others. Horizontal dimensions are the basis for dividing work into specific jobs and tasks and then assigning those jobs to units such as departments or teams. The vertical dimension of organizational structure includes unity of command, centralization and decentralization, span of control, formalization, authority, responsibility, and accountability. Unity of command is a subordinate should basically defined by the nature of a subordinate having only one supervisor. And although there are exceptions to this, sometimes when necessary, an individual might be a liaison on a project and has a primary supervisor within their role within the department, but they may also have a supervisor within a project domain. And so that's an unusual circumstances, but I have seen that happen. Authority, responsibility, and accountability have very specific definitions in management. Authority is the formal right to make decisions, give orders, and expect that those orders be carried out. Responsibility is defined as the duty to perform assigned task. And accountability is a manager with authority and responsibility must be able to justify the results to a manager at a higher level in the organization. Authority it consists in two parts, line authority and staff authority. A line authority is direct control of work or subordinates by hiring, discharging, evaluating, and rewarding them. And staff includes giving advice, making recommendations, and offering counsel. In a lot of different ways that you can divide an organization, but a typical organizational chart might have a president and various vice presidents who then manage department heads, and then department heads may have a variety of supervisors of different parts of the task being completed, and within that you have various operatives. And the thing to note on this is that generally the span of control for leadership, a specific number of subordinates report to that manager, and a good number ranges, of 4 or 5. You start getting to 8, 9, 10, it starts becoming too large a span of control for a single individual, especially given their roles as mentors as well as monitors of activity. Centralization and decentralization. Centralization is a decision-making authority is located at the top of an organizational hierarchy, right? The president. Decentralization means decision-making authority is pushed to lower levels in the organization. Formalization is the degree of written documentation that is used to direct and control employees. Often formalization grows as an organization becomes more established. The horizontal dimension of organization includes departmentalization, the way that horizontal basis for organizing units into functional division or matrix controls. Functional departments would be things like engineering, production, marketing, and finance. Divisional organization might be something like, as the example provides, a computer division, a software division, and a consulting division. Each of those divisions, within them, they have their own examples of production, marketing, and finance, which are not distinct in separate organizations, but are built in within those divisions. So there could be some overlapping, but it's an interesting way sometimes necessary to do. Geographic-based organizations might have, for example, they provide, have United States and Canada division, and then a Latin American division, a European division, an Asian division, depending on how wide the organization is or how small. It's based on, basically the location. So you have, city, region, state, and then externally on the more global scale. Computer-based organizational structure, customer-based organizational structure. You might have a personal customer division, a small business customer division, or a corporate customer division. I've seen this a lot in the bank level. If you think about it, right, you have specific members of the banking staff that work with individuals, others that work with small businesses, and others that work on a corporate level to provide a very different type of service to each group. Conglomerate-based organizational structures, right? Let's say a very large corporation owns many different types of businesses. They might have an aircraft division, a medical division, a financial division, a plastics division, and so on, as the example provides. A matrix-type organization is going to have a president and then vice presidents of various types of divisions, but then they'll have also a kind of geographic base, and so that regional manager is going to kind of direct report up to the different vice presidents for different aspects of their business. Coordination mechanisms include meetings, right? How do we share information? Meetings. How do we get things done? Meetings. I've had so many occasions where I walk out of a meeting with more to do than I had when I walked into the meeting, right? It's not just reporting. There's often a lot of task assignments and so on. Coordination mechanisms also include things like organization-wide reward systems, task forces and teams, liaison roles, integrating managers, organizational culture, and so on. Organizational design could be mechanistic, organic, or boundaryless. Make sure you understand kind of what those terms mean. Strategy factors in the choice of design: organizational capabilities, technology, organizational size, basically environmental turbulence within the type of market you're in. Mechanistic organization emphasizes vertical control with rigid hierarchical relationships, top-down command and control communication channels, centralized decision-making authority, highly formalized work rules and policies, and specialized, narrowly defined jobs. Organic organizations emphasize horizontal relationships among teams, departments, or divisions, provisions to coordinate lateral units. It's much more decentralized decision-making, low levels of specialization, formalization, and standardizations, larger spans of controls, and fewer levels of management. Boundaryless organizations eliminate internal and external structural boundaries that inhibit employees from collaborating with each other or that inhibit firms from collaborating with customers, suppliers, and competitors. Redesigning organizations takes the form of mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures. Again, make sure you understand all these terms. And that effectively covers this chapter. Again, review each of the learning objectives and make sure you understand all the terms. Look at all the examples in the tables and charts. They provide good information for you to visualize what it is you're trying to understand for this term. The next chapter looks at the importance of human resource management. Right? HR can make an organization more productive. It's important as a part of the way that we comply with legal requirements and gain and maintain competitive advantages in the workplace. The environment of human resource management includes such things as workforce diversity, globalization, legislation, and unions. Legislation, you've got a number of different ways that the government interacts with corporations. Title VII, for example, of the Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination based upon a person's race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. It defines protected classes, and this is one of the things that HR is designed to do, is to ensure that all organizations are abiding by the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. Two forms of illegal discrimination include disparate treatment, meaning that an employee is treated differently because of his or her protected class status, or it could be an adverse impact when the same standard is applied to all applicants or employees, but that standard affects a protected class more negatively. Other HR legislation, there's a lot to review here, looking at things like workers' compensation, Social Security, age discrimination, OSHA, employee retirement, income security, pregnancy discrimination, Equal Pay Act, and so on. It's a good idea to review each of these very carefully in your textbook to ensure that you understand what they're all about. The Family Medical Leave Act, Healthcare Reform Act, how did the ACA, American Disabilities Act, Affordable Care Act, how did all these things impact what HR does? There's too many to go into in great detail here, but again, make sure that you spend some time with each one and understand, because HR has to take all of these things into consideration as it's hiring, training, and implementing an organization's policies and enforcing its standards. Among those things would be doing things like sexual harassment training to ensure that we're not in any way have a hostile work environment, that such things as quid pro quo, where a manager who's in a power position is asking something of an employee in exchange for something that they want. That there are lots of ways this can be badly handled, and so HR will often provide training. I know managers have to have this training. I think legally it's every 2 years, and then employees have to have this training as well, but a slightly different type of training as well. So sexual harassment training, very big part of what HR does. Thing to keep in mind, in many states like California, employment is an at-will basis, meaning that no employment contract, if there's no employment contract, then both the employer and the employee are free to end the employment relationship whenever they choose and for whatever reasons they choose. So in most cases, you're protected by a lot of that legislation, so you can't be fired for no cause. But generally speaking, it's an at-will basis, both on the employee level and at the employer level. Unions are essentially in decline. 35% of the workforce in 1945 were part of unions, where it was down to 10% in 2011. The main role of unions is collective bargaining. They provide a voice for employees on a lot of levels. Not all companies like having unions. Not employees like being part of unions. There are advantages and disadvantages to unions. The human resource management process begins with strategic HR planning. moves down into HR tactics, and specifically will target things like staffing, orientation, training, career development, performance appraisals, and compensation and benefits. Human resource planning looks at product demand, labor productivity, internal labor market, and external labor market, looking at the labor demand and the labor supply, and then looking at the conditions, choose and select responses for the various levels there. The staffing process includes recruitment, selection, and orientation. Selection tools include things like applications forms, letters of recommendation, ability tests, performance simulation tests, personality tests, psychological tests, oddity tests, interviews, physical exams. There's a lot of ways that a company can choose to test its employees, potential employees, before they become employees. So your book goes into much more detail there. Be sure that you review kind of the nature of the selection tools available to HR. Employee training will look at needs assessment, develop and conduct training, and then provide evaluations. Needs assessment to determine whether training is needed for something. Developing and conducting training can be both on-the-job training or off-the-job training. Evaluation reexamines training methods to determine whether they provide the expected benefit and meet the needs identified in an earlier phase of the process. Career development has an assessment phase, a direction phase, and a development phase. The development phase includes mentoring, coaching, job rotation, tuition assistance programs, and so on. Performance appraisal has the objective of opening two-way communication channels between employees and their supervisors, providing constructive feedback to employees, and helping managers decide who should be paid more based on individual contributions. Management approaches to performance appraisal. There are a number of ways we can go about this: trade appraisal instruments, behavioral appraisal instruments, behavioral anchored rating scales, outcome appraisal instruments, and so on. Your book defines these in greater terms. Spend some time making sure that you understand them. Compensation is a big way to attract high quality employees, retain the best employees, and motivate employees to work harder. I'll tell you from personal experience, as we all know, getting that raise sometimes is a big motivator to step up and do more. Total compensation looks at your base compensation as well as various pay incentives and then other indirect compensation and benefits. All these things might include things like a company phone, a company car, medical insurance, stock options, you name it. Compensation is designed to fit with the firm's strategic objectives, fit with the firm's unique characteristics and environment, create internal and external equity, and look at employee contributions. And again, the HR has a very big role in an organization. There are entire courses on HR management and degrees in HR management all by itself. It's a very specific area of management. And that concludes Lesson 5. I hope you enjoyed this video.